Hello, and welcome to Get in the Zone for Leaders. My name is Harrison. Today, we're going to talk about how to get in the zone, how to stay in the zone, how to stay out of the zone, which a lot of us seem to master at. We don't stay there very long. My role is one of the co-hosts for today. Joining us is Victoria. Hello, Victoria.
Thank you. Good day, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. My name is Victoria. I'm the CEO of the Go Zone Group. How to stay out of the zone. Mute so that no one can hear us.
That's right. That's an example of little things can have us out of the zone, isn't it? I didn't even introduce myself, other than I'm the co-host, get threw me off. So I am the co-founder of the Gold Zone Group. We're a small group of companies, and our favorite project is the Gold Zone Leadership Center, where we support leaders and their teams in their personal lives, in their careers, and in their business with their business growth. We have other projects. We have an investment company, a wellness center, a medical clinic. What else do we have? A publishing company and a few other things. But our most fun thing to do is dealing with people and their challenges, isn't it, Victoria?
Absolutely. The most exciting part and the least pleasant. How can both exist at the same time?
Yeah. So we've been doing these weekly sessions, Victoria, and we've been having a lot of fun doing them for 1 hour each week. And today we're focusing on being in the zone, and then we're going to be acutely aware of when we drop out of the zone, isn't it?
Yep.
So funny. Why did you want to get in the zone this week? What attracted you to this subject?
It's interesting. One of the inspiration for me for this subject is I feel that many people get in the zone is not an easy concept to grasp, because we talk about getting into the zone in sports, and people have quite a good idea what that can look like. But when it comes to every other area of our life, be it our career, our relationship, our business, our money, our health, our communication, which is part of our self-expression. When it comes to getting into the zone, not many people talk about. And from my perspective, I also, did a post on what is Go Zone and explaining to people. Go Zone is essentially getting into the zone. And I feel that having that understanding makes life a lot easier, make dealing with challenges a lot easier. I just want to say, make everything a lot easier. It doesn't matter what situation we are experiencing. Everything do become easier when we understand that getting into the zone is possible for any aspect of our life.
Any aspect. So people are familiar with getting in the zone in sports. How do you apply that to the different areas of life, Victoria?
Well, I think if you apply the same principle in sports, right? When we practice I can't say that I'm not an athlete, but I do have some understanding when it comes to wanting to achieve something. I used to play netball, and that the key to any sports is that you have to, first step is the hardest, and then as you start practicing, or if we want to lose weight, we want to get fit, the beginning is always the hardest. And sadly, for most of us, that is when most people quit, the first day or the second day, third day, and the fourth day. Get into the zone, we got to get through our own obstacles around how we feel when things get hard, and how do we get through those moments to get into the zone that we need to get in order for things to flow more easily.
Well, the thing is, Victoria, if people don't believe that getting in the zone is possible, and that it might be possible for other people but not for themselves, if you don't believe that it's possible, you're never going to get there, are you? Except by chance, by fluke, and then you're not able to repeat it. So to me, the key to getting in the zone is the belief that there's an easier way to operate that's faster, easier, more efficient, more effective, takes less effort, and you can get more done. And what's in the way of that is that so many of us are trained, programmed, and conditioned that struggle and working hard and having a lot of discomfort and sacrifice and suffering is honorable, worthy, normal, and you get a medal for suffering. And whilst many people are born into poverty and struggling for food to stay alive, most of us in the developed world are not. And
Yeah.
if we have this mindset that struggling and doing it hard is something that makes us worthy, that makes us a good person, then when we have flow, we're going to feel guilty, and we're going to think that, this makes me a bad person if it's too easy. And a
Something
lot of people, yeah,
good
go
to-
on. Go on.
Yeah, it's too easy. Something is wrong. It's too good to be true, and that it can't be that easy. That's quite a common mindset.
This too good to be true, Victoria, happens when people get scammed. And the common saying about being scammed is that if it seems too good to be true, it usually is. And so people have that belief. So if you say to people, hey, this could be easy, why are you struggling? Why does it have to be so hard? They're going to go, oh, alert, alert, alert. I'm going to get scammed because life is hard, life is tough, life is miserable. Is it true that life is miserable? That life is hard, that life is all about sacrifice, that life is all about, suffering? I don't believe in suffering. I don't know about you, but forget suffering. Suffering is something that I choose. If I'm suffering, I'm going to ask myself, why am I suffering here? Am I going to die? No. What's the reason for the suffering? It's an emotional gap between my ego and my reality, where I want it to be a certain way and it is something different, and then I suffer in the gap of my ego. So it's an emotional reaction. If I'm in pain and I'm suffering in physical pain, yes, this can be something else. But most of us are not in the physical pain category, are we, Victoria?
No, most of our pain is more emotional than anything else. The fear and the worry and unsolvable problems in life, we don't have a solution to most of our problems, so we put up with it, and then we just say to ourselves, well, if everyone is doing the same thing, if everyone is having the same problem, it must be normal, right?
It must be normal because everybody's doing it. Well, if you want the result that everybody else gets, then keep doing what everybody else does. So if most people are having a hard time, if they're not happy, if they're struggling in their careers, if they're lost or lonely or, putting up with things that they don't want, and if most people are doing that, is that a good reason to be doing it, Victoria?
Well, for me it's not, but for it depends on what you want, right? For me it's not. I'm like, no, that's not what I want.
But aren't people listening to this and watching us? Aren't they going to think you're crazy? It's fine for you. You're beautiful. You're attractive. You're the CEO. You obviously have life made. If you were fat, short, and ugly, and you weren't the CEO, life would be different for you.
I wish. I was just saying to someone the other day that none of you probably will believe this. I've never had, when I was single, I never had a guy buying flowers for me before. And I used to think, what's wrong with me?
Oops, I better go buy you some flowers, huh? Hey, note to self, buy Victoria, send her some flowers.
When I was single, no one.
I know.
Envious. I used to be envious when I see other girlfriends or, women getting flowers during Valentine's Day. So yes, I've never had that before.
Well, a lot of people think that beautiful people have an easy time of things. That's fine for you because you're white, you're a guy, you're whatever, you're beautiful, you're young, you're a CEO, but they don't see what it took to get you there, and they don't see what goes on behind the scenes. And so it's very easy to look at the surface and make assessments of how easy it is for someone. They don't know what different people go through, or we don't know when we look at others on the surface what they have been through unless we walk beside them, or we walked in their shoes, or we had a meaningful discussion with them to share with us what they've been through. Now, you and I are fortunate because we have a lot of these meaningful discussions with a lot of people, so we understand.
Yes, agree. And yeah, well,
And
we understand because we are
go on.
interested, because this is the work that we do that we are interested in, and it
Mhm.
helps understand other people more so that we know what to do to support them with what we, with how we help other people with. The toughest part is when people don't really, they don't understand how you understand them. And that a lot of people, because most of the time we do get, I'm not talking about me per se, but most of us do get a lot of judgment when we share our when we share our story, our struggle, or our obstacles. I probably like to use obstacles more than struggle. I think struggle might be a little bit, too much, but we all have obstacles. Doesn't matter how we look, doesn't matter what background. We can be rich, we can be poor, we can be coming from middle income family. I do believe everyone has their fair share of obstacles. Just some have more than others.
Yeah. You know why personally I like to talk about struggle? Because the opposite of flow is struggle.
Yeah,
And while many people have a lot of struggle, they don't like to admit that they're struggling. And what is struggling anyway? Struggling is when you put effort into something, you want something, you work hard at it, but you have a lot of negative emotion around it because you're not getting what you want. And I think this is a good discussion when we're talking about how to get in the zone, means how to have more flow. And then in order to understand how to have more flow, we look at, what's the opposite of flow, which is struggle, where we've got this negative emotion and we're not getting what we want. And I've asked thousands of people in a lot of different contexts, Victoria. I've asked them, how many of you are getting what you want? And people have a hard time admitting that they're not getting what they want. And I'll go down the list. I'll say, are you making the money you want? Yes or no? Well, and then all the justifications come out. Oh, next year I got this coming, I got that happening, and there's all these justifications. So the answer is no for most people. Not everyone. Some people have more money than sense, right? But so it's just some people. Then you say, do you have the relationship that you want? Are you getting yes in your relationship? And you go down the list, and most of us are putting up with less than what we want. And that's where the struggle comes in, because what's the opposite of not getting what you want is getting what you want. And that's what we're talking about here. You want to get in the zone so you can have more of what you want, so your business can grow, so more clients can be attracted to you, so that you get a promotion, so that employers come to you looking for you to join their team, give you opportunity, so people say yes to you. So you go to the restaurant and you order some food and it comes out really fast and it's delicious and the service is perfect the way you want it. And, this is getting what you want. But most people have the opposite. They order from someone who drops the food, drops the order,
you.
like this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the toughest part when it comes to struggling is when someone is on the fence. You are neither here nor there. You want it, but you can't really admit you want it, and then you don't have it, but you can't admit that you are not unhappy. So to me that's the that's the worst place to be in. If I'm unhappy and I can say I'm unhappy, that's one thing. But if I'm not happy and I can't say I'm not happy, and meanwhile when someone asks me, oh, then what do you want? Oh, I don't know. Whatever. Because I can't admit what I want. Meanwhile, I'm not happy.
Well, that
To
reminds
that
me,
feels like a struggle.
yeah. That reminds me of the rules of problem solving, because I'm an engineer. The first thing as an engineer that you need to do to solve a problem is admit that there's a problem in the first place. So is the system giving me the output I want? Yes or no? If it's giving you, then the answer is yes. And if it isn't, then the answer is no. And then the next question would be, where is the problem? And then you go looking for where the problem is and you can diagnose it. That's from a logical point of view, but most people don't live like that, do they?
Yeah. Well, engineering is easy. You're more objective in terms of solving a problem. The challenge with as a human being is we judge the fact that we have a problem. That's the problem. We judge ourselves, and then we have feelings about it. Or meanwhile, we can't describe how we feel, and we wonder why we feel stuck.
Then we're confused, aren't we? Because if we're confused, we go up to the buffet and there's so many choices. We're confused what to eat, so we end up eating nothing. And
or try too many things, and then we overfeed ourselves and wonder why we can't taste anything, other than feeling like, actually buffet table, most people overdo it. Instead of choosing really want, they say, oh, I don't want to waste, I already paid the money, so I don't want to waste it, let's take everything.
That's a problem, isn't it?
Yes.
So Victoria, what does it look like to get in the zone on a regular basis? Like in the zone. So if there is a zone where time expands, where flow happens, where things are easy, you get the results with little apparent effort, and it just comes to you and it's natural, then if that's called the zone, aren't there other zones also? The zone where nothing works, where everybody says no to you, where you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, versus getting into the zone, you're at the right place at the right time, you think of someone and the phone rings and it's the person you were thinking of. Whereas when you're having a hard time in the struggle zone, you make 100 phone calls and nobody answers.
Actually, I want to share that's my experience. That's a good example to use when it comes to, because I came from a sales background, and so I've been talking to people for many years, regardless being a CEO, managing director, business development person, career. I have had there was this period of time where I was really struggling. I felt like it's not that I was in depression, but I felt quite hopeless. So from that feeling, and I wasn't very confident because I had a lot of losses at the same time. And I tried to there was one time, so mentally I said to myself, oh, I can get through this, all I need is to make 100 phone calls. I'm not joking. So I sat down there and just make the calls. And out of the 100 phone calls, I can't remember the exact statistics, but what I remember is I didn't get any yes out of 100 phone calls.
Wow.
And and the number of people who actually answered my call was very minimal. It's probably about 10 to 15 people who answered my call, but I don't even remember how many people talked to me. Because from how I felt, the feeling I had inside me, and when I talk to people, now I can say it this way because I know exactly what happened at that time. I can see from today's point of view why people will want to talk to me, because how I will come across I would sound desperate and I would not be very attractive. I wouldn't sound that clear. And who wants to talk to me like that?
Right.
And whereas many other times when I would had some clarity, had a goal, and I had some bigger reason why I would make phone call, I would reach out to people, the response it's very interesting. I can think about someone and I'll give them a call, or maybe, either one person or two, three people. It takes like within like 5 people. If I'm clear enough, I get into the zone, go call that person, talk to them, and it'll be a yes.
Well, you say when I get into the zone. So
I got
in
clear.
your first example, you go calling 100 people, so you've got frenzied activity. And in your second example, you sit down somewhere quiet, you think about it, you get into the zone, which means that something changes inside of you. So the only difference between your two examples is that something changes inside you. So then from there, you think of who, and then either they're going to contact you. Go on.
Who can be aligned? Basically, the clarity is, what's my purpose of making this call? What's my purpose of reaching out to these people? And then from there, who is going to be more aligned with that? Doesn't mean I'm always right, but I'll be more right than not. And the most important part in that is that I'm very clear within myself, between the vision of what I want to achieve, the vision, the goal, and my emotion are all aligned.
So that's what you're talking about getting in the zone, is that you connect to your purpose, the reason that you're doing it. Then you think of who also is connected to the same purpose. Then you align yourself emotionally with that. And then you think about who is the person that is aligned with it. And then you go take the action.
Yeah, correct. Or
So
who could
yep.
who could do with alignment, meaning who could do with what I have to offer to them. It's as if they are looking for me and I'm looking for them.
Right.
And I call them at the right time, with the right person. I call the right person at the right time, and voila. Oh, I was just thinking about you. Oh, I was just thinking of this.
This brings up something like really important, and I feel it's profound. It's worth pointing out. It's a reminder for you and I, as well as everybody here who's with us, is that when you connect with the purpose of what you're doing, there's someone else out there who is also connected to the same purpose. And it's like if they have a problem and you have a solution, then who wants to do that transaction more? The person who wants to do the sale and receive money in exchange, or the person who has a problem that they want to solve? And I would propose to everybody, the person who is more motivated. Yeah, you can type it in the chat there. Our chat is delayed, so we're not pointing it out so much, but we'll answer every single question and comment either during the session or after. So what happens is that the person who has the problem is more motivated to solve that problem than you are to make a sale. And
Yes.
yet what has people struggling is that they focus on them getting money and the monetary side of the transaction and who can give them money, getting money. And so a lot of the messages that we get, direct messages, texts, phone calls, are all somebody trying to get money from us, rather than them being interested in us and looking for who is the person who has a problem that they can solve easily. Because whatever problem any one of us has, someone in the world has already solved it. Someone's already solved it. So the key is to connect the person with the problem with the solution. And when those two meet, kaboom. Isn't that the zone, Victoria?
Yes. It applies to relationship too. That's how you work with clients on that, right? It's a little bit hard to believe because, like we say at the beginning, how can it be so easy? What I know is that if I want to attract the relationship I want, if I'm not ready, the person is ready there, except that if I'm not ready, I'm not going to be able to see them. And if they are not ready, they are not going to be able to see me.
Well, now you're getting deep, Victoria. Now you're getting to the core of it, Victoria. This is not on the surface, is it? You're getting to, if you're not ready, then they can't connect with you if you're not ready. And if you're ready and they're not ready, the deal's not going to happen, whether it's a date, a relationship or a business deal. If either side is not ready, the transaction can't happen. But a lot of people are forcing these transactions to happen. They are forcing the money. They're trying to force the flow. And here's the backlash when you use force instead of flow. Now we're going to talk about the Tao, isn't it? We're going to talk about yin and yang. And what happens is the flow is in when it happens naturally, not when you use force. Because when you use force by physics, you're met with an equal and opposite reaction. So any action is met with an equal and opposite force. So if you're putting force in, the force is going to come back and bite you. Whereas if two people who want the same thing meet, there's no force involved.
So when you say the force come back and bite you, right, how does that manifest in real life outcome? Because I have a few things on my mind when you say that. It will make it easier for everyone to understand what you really mean. So if you force something through, what's going to happen? What are the counter force that will happen that makes it at the big? You might get the result now, but what is the repercussion of that if you overuse force?
Well, let's use the simplest example, which relates to all of us because we've all been children. So let's say your relationship with a child, you can force them to do anything you want. You can make them eat any kind of food. You can make them go anywhere because if they don't want to do it, you're bigger than them. You can punish them, you can reward them, you can manipulate them, you can coerce them, you can control them, you can physically beat them. So you can get children temporarily to do anything. The problem is, once you use force like that, that child's going to lose trust with you. That child is not going to like you. That child is going to avoid you. That child is going to go yes, yes, yes to your face, and behind the scenes do whatever they want. And this is what happens in a lot of businesses. Even though we believe in, cooperative leadership, let's work together, let's create psychological safety, and it's a cover for, using different forms of more sophisticated force. So with that child, when we apply that force, the child, when we're not around, is going to do whatever they want. They're going to become a rebel, and they're not going to like us, and they're going to leave home as soon as they can and not going to see us. So that has a lot of consequences that are invisible to us at the time. So in the short term, we get what we want using force, but in the long term, it works against us, because all that energy we put into the child in terms of forcing them comes back from them to bite us in the butt.
This lion is not exactly, the most optimum.
No. So the alternative, Victoria, if we were using getting in the zone, to get in the zone with the child, we just talk to them like a human being. What do you want? What do you need? What's in your way? How do you feel? And then let's work together to solve that as a problem. Let's do it and make it fun, and then there's no force involved and there's no negative consequence. In fact, it's all positive because you're building this relationship of trust.
Yeah. And also explain to them when it's necessary, educate them in a way, showing them what it's like. We do it ourselves. We show them, well, this is, what do we, how many parents struggle to get their kids eat vegetables, right? To eat well. And if we show them, how are they going to know what to eat and what not to eat?
That's right. Exactly. And, an interesting thing with our kids is when it comes to school, you ask them, what's your least favorite subject? Which subject you like the least? And they're going to tell you real fast, Chinese class. And as a family, we're very encouraging of Chinese classes because they're half Chinese. So we want them to have an English heritage, English language, and we want them to be able to speak Chinese, to understand Chinese culture, to understand the Chinese philosophy, to have a grounding in their, their background, their history, their culture, and everything. And the class they like the least is the one that achieves that. And the reason is the Chinese teacher yells at them. They get this. Ding, 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 and they get yelled at. They don't like being yelled at. And consequently, nobody at school likes Chinese class.
Yes.
So it's sad. It's very sad.
They didn't just not like it, they hate it. It's actually quite extreme.
Well, so the force coming back is hate. So the Chinese teacher has a hard time engaging with the students to get them to fall in love. Oh man, if they only knew how much fun they can have with Chinese culture and Chinese language and drawing the characters. What of all the classes, this should be the favorite. It should be. It could be if it was taught in a more engaging, enrolling, and a way that understands how to get in the zone and get in the zone with the kids. They would love it. Instead, the opposite is happening because the way that it's taught is very forceful, very authoritarian, very in your face, make you wrong, punish you, and yelling at them. When they don't get what they want, they yell at them. It's really quite amazing.
Yeah.
And that's an example. So what other ones were you thinking of, Victoria?
I think that's a great example. There's no need, because the kids are a great example, employees are a great example. If you are selling service is another great example. If you are selling something and you can force people, you can manipulate them, but are you wanting a one-time transaction or are you wanting a long-term relationship? Because
most people, sadly, Victoria, are singular transaction oriented. They just want to get a sale, a transaction now, and they're not thinking of the lifetime value of a relationship for both parties. Because the person doing the buying, when I go and buy things, I'm real happy giving people money and getting something in exchange. I want something. So I'm a very enthusiastic and motivated buyer, and I'm very easy to sell to. A whole range of things I will buy very easily. And if someone is short-term oriented, transactional, they just want to get this sale. They're not thinking of the bigger picture. So then they're going to use more force and manipulation. And I'm thinking of a situation where you were hiring a coach, and this coach was manipulating you into taking action and manipulating. I'm talking about you, Victoria. They're using manipulation to get the transaction done instead of using ease and flow and allowing you to step into it. Because when you step into it, there's a different outcome.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, sometimes I want to add to this. Sometimes, if you look at a sports analogy, sometimes the coach has to yell at everybody. There is a time for that. But
Yeah,
the coach of a sports team is not spending all day yelling. You know, the yelling is a last resort, and it's one of the methods they use to support the team to get what they want. And it is something that we all need to be able to do. We all need to use force. If we can't use force, then the team's going to be lose, 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 lose. So if you have a losing team, you can talk to them nicely, you can put your arm around them, you can talk to them about their problems and still have a loser. So at some stage, you got to say, put your freaking pants on, pull your socks up and get out on the field and go kick some butt. And sometimes this level of force has to be applied. The problem is if you use nothing but force.
yeah, agree.
Then you get the backlash.
Yeah, also depending on who you're leading, some people need more force than other people. So if you don't know who you're leading, if you don't know who you're working with, then you don't know what force to put.
That's right.
And that's the other thing that will have a different impact. And I'm very sure, Harrison, now that we are about 35 minutes into the session, I'm very sure, given that a lot of people are house, right? So simply put, how do people get more in the zone?
Well, I'll give you my answer and then you can give yours. How do you get more into the zone? I'm going to tell a story. When you're buying real estate, we all know it's location, location, location. So getting in the zone of real estate is location based, isn't it? That you're better off having the cheapest house on the most expensive street than you are having the most expensive house on the cheapest street. And I think this is a good analogy for getting in the zone. It's your environment. The first thing to work on is get yourself into the right environment. A lot of people, they're in noisy environments. They got jackhammers in the background. They got people yelling, people screaming, doors banging. They got people arguing. They got all this stuff in the background, and they say, "Oh, fine, I can tune that out. I'm used to it. I'm used to arguing in the background. I'm used to the jackhammers." You are never going to get in the zone with that kind of background. It's not going to happen. So control of your environment is really important. If you're in a chaotic environment, it's going to have you out of the zone. It's going to lead to more struggle. And if you get yourself into a environment that's conducive to having more flow, to being more graceful, and we call it the speed of grace, where you're not going too fast, it's not too slow, it's the optimum speed that you can go and maintain your grace. So getting in the environment is the first part. The second part is to believe, and maybe it's first, but it's the second one I'm going to talk about, is to believe that things can be easy. It's to fall in love with easy and to fall in love with flow and to do more with less. More with less means you put in less effort and get a greater outcome. And this goes against what we think, because we think you got to put more force, more outcome. But when you think of flow, you think of exponential. You have a higher return for less effort. So you got to believe in it. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is it's about you emotionally being connected to your purpose. You mentioned it, that you connect to your purpose. Why am I doing this? And when you remember why you're doing it, what your purpose is, what your mission is, what your values are, and then your feelings line up with that, because a lot of people have fear about, I'm going to fail, I'm going to lose, I'm going to look bad. Anytime you have fear, there's no flow. As any artist will tell you, when you go to engage in an artistic project or any kind of creative activity, fear knocks you immediately out of that flow state. So You can't have flow when you're afraid, or when you're contracted, or when you're angry, or when you're ashamed, or when you're lonely, or when you feel lost. So a lot of these emotions really get in the way. And when you feel like no matter what you do, it's not going to work out, you have this feeling, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. Oh, I never get what I want. And all these things we tell ourselves that are our inner critic, our voice that tells us negative things and that reassures us that we're going to fail, we're destined for all this nonsense that goes on in our head, chitter chatter, psychobabble. This stuff has us struggling and out of the flow. So we have to deal with that, line it up, and our mental scape, calm, peaceful, and then in high action, but not struggle. And that's how I would recommend people do it. But, if your feelings are, I'm worried. Let's say I've got some problem to deal with. Let's say a relative is going through cancer, and they're having a hard time dealing with the chemotherapy. They're in chemotherapy, and then, it's a recurrence or something like this. It's like a life-threatening problem. And every day, if we're ruminating about this issue with our family member, this is a problem that is not solved for us, and it keeps coming onto our mind. This is going to affect our ability to get in the zone. So cancer is an extreme one, but what if we have some heaviness in our chest? What if we have some tension in our shoulder blade and our arm is aching and we have a heaviness in our chest? First thing we're going to think of is, I'm having a heart attack. No, I'm not. Oh, I'll just ignore it. But in the back of our mind, maybe I've got something going on. So this kind of unsolved problem that persists in the background is going to have us out of the zone. Or if there's somebody we're avoiding this tough conversation, this is another problem. If we avoid that one, then that's going to have us out of the zone. So there's a lot of these little things with problems and whatnot that people think is normal, but it isn't, will have us out of the zone. You want to add to that, Victoria?
Yeah, I thought, I think you have touched on quite a bit around fear, worry, present time problem, unsolved problems, which get us out of the zone, and which lead to, for me, getting in the zone. What the key is really, I got to be clear, which is what we discussed just now. If I'm not clear, which is how to not be clear, is to have all these problems in life that I feel like I can't solve, and at the same time I can't get the worry off my mind. That will get me out of the zone. And one of the things that I found for myself over the years as I work on being more in the zone is that if I have too many problems, there are two ways to go about doing it. First is temporarily suspend myself from thinking about the problem while going for what my ideal outcome is. Because I can't really stop myself thinking about the problem, but I can think about, well, what's my ideal outcome if I were to solve this problem? What is possible? And then getting clear what my ideal outcome is, and I work backwards towards solving the problem. What is the one problem that takes up my most mind space? I go solve that first. And if I can't solve it, I need to get help.
What people do, Victoria, with what you've outlined is very good. You get clear first, and then whatever's occupying your mind space. Now, how most people will solve this is they'll try and think their way out of it. So they'll go to mental masturbation, and they'll be thinking. Let me think about it. Let me think. And the more they think, the less they're in the zone and the more struggle they have. So this overthinking actually takes you out of the zone.
Yes. In fact, the more you overanalyze things, the more fear you will have, the more you feel out of control. And the key is actually to just go do it, and then you will know what's your real obstacle, or you go get help and talk through your fear. Because if you can't talk about what you're afraid of, if you can't feel what you're really afraid of, everything looks like a problem.
But these people, Victoria, these people who over-mentalize things, what they do is they won't take action until they know how they're going to do it, and they have a plan and they have a strategy and they've got it all worked out, and it's lined up there on a wall with a whole bunch of Post-it notes, and they've got it all worked out. Then finally, when everything makes sense, when everybody else has got cobwebs all over them because it's taken so long. Then eventually they get in action. Meanwhile, the ship has already left. It's too late.
Yeah. Well, that's why, yes, everybody basically the trust is the lack of trust. That's the other thing that I was thinking about when it comes to getting into the zone. It takes me trusting myself, not other people, myself. A lot of people
And what
think
do you have to trust in yourself? Like, take that example. If you're over analyzing things and trying to figure out how, if you trust yourself, what are you going to do?
Yes.
You're going to jump in and do it right away, aren't you? And figure it out along the way.
Correct. Because when I don't trust myself, the underlying feeling is that what if I fail? What if I made a mistake? And then followed by how I feel about myself when that happened, and then followed by, oh, what are other people going to think about me? I'm gonna get shit, basically. So
Well, if
there's
you're in
this,
Chinese class, you're going to get this.
yeah. It's not just Chinese class, but Chinese class is quite exaggerated.
It is exaggerated.
Yeah,
It
correct.
is.
Yes.
But
So
don't most people have this in their mind? Some parent, some teacher, some authority has punished them for making mistakes, told them, get it right, don't get it wrong. Everybody's looking at you. What were the neighbors thinking? We got this finger pointing at us.
I was horrified and sad when my daughter told me one of her classmates' father told the classmates regularly that if you don't do this, get out of my house.
Oh my God.
And he's only 9-year-old.
I can't imagine what a 9-year-old would fear being told if you don't do what this person wants, they got to leave. Where would they go? I mean, this is horrible.
I mean, we know the father is not going to do it, but that kind of threat is very harmful and emotionally. It leads to a lot of problem.
Hey, Victoria, I'm going to tell you a story you don't know, you have not heard before. I can tell you a new one, all right? This is a new one. I've got a few new stories you haven't heard before. But when I was about 9, we lived on a farm. Some of you know that. I grew up on a dairy farm in New Zealand. So when I was about 9, we had this 12-year-old kid who lived in town. We were in the country. And this kid hated his home environment, and he loved being on the farm with us. He was the son of a friend of my parents. He hated being home with his parents. He would always run away from home and come up to the farm, and we would wake up in the morning and find him in the house. This is the 12-year-old kid. He was always running away and coming up to the farm. And, this is the opposite problem of the parent telling him, you don't do what I want, get out of the house. This kid took it literally, and he would run away all the time. And looking back now with what I know, I wish someone could have sat down with him and found out what was really going on, that had a 12-year-old kid running away from home, and solved that problem for him or with him.
Yeah.
Very sad, isn't it?
It's very sad. So yeah, I think, I feel that a lot of people might not be aware the impact they have when we say certain things that we say to our kids or the people around us. A lot of people are not aware of the impact that it has on the other person.
And then as adults, isn't this some of the things that gets us out of the zone, that has us struggling, is that we have all this stuff in our heads. So what are some of the other things people can do to get in the zone? You were saying get clear, Victoria, and then deal with those problems, line up your emotions. What else can they do?
Yeah. Well, really get clear what your ideal outcome is, solve the problem. And it's not about trying to solve every problem together. It's the one that really take up the most mind space. Go solve that problem, and you'll be surprised. The one that take up your biggest mind space is the one that can free you of a lot of the frustration and agitation that you used to have. And it can be done when I'm clear like this, right? I have an instance where some time ago, I think I was avoiding having some difficult conversation, and it kept ruminating it at the back of my mind, but I refuse to go handle it. And I make up a lot of stuff about, how that conversation is going to go. So it took me, because I wasn't willing to face that conversation, I had some important tasks that I need to complete that it took me at least 3-4 months before I can take action on it. So I procrastinated. But I didn't even realize they are both connected. They are both separate incidents. And the moment I got clear and went to take action on the difficult conversation, it took me like, I can't remember how long, let's say about 1-2 hours to complete the task I wanted to complete.
So what you're saying is that avoiding a difficult conversation created a whole lot of difficulty in different areas that were unrelated to it, and that
Yeah.
things didn't flow for you, things didn't work out in a lot of unrelated areas until you dealt with this conversation that you were avoiding.
Yes. And it took me 1-2 hours to complete it versus procrastinating for 3-4 months. And that's one thing that people don't understand procrastination. Procrastination is not lack of willpower, it's not lack of there's so many reasons why people say we procrastinate, right? But I would say that one of the reasons why one of the biggest contributor why most people procrastinate is because they don't have the energy to do it, and they have other things that they are bogged down by things that they are not aware of, that have them not having the clarity and energy to take the action on what they think they are procrastinate with what the thing that they are procrastinating about.
Well, in this regard, Victoria, people think they can compartmentalize. You have work, you have finance, you have home, you have relationship, you have friends, you have family, and all these are in compartments. And what they don't realize is we have one life, and our emotion goes across all the different areas. So if we have a difficult conversation with our boss at work, or with an employee, if we are the boss, if we have a difficult conversation that we know we have to have, but we put it off because we are worried about how they're going to take it, how we're going to handle their reaction to it, and then we just keep putting it off, this stays in the back of our mind. And no matter what we do to avoid it, to think about something else, to focus some other area and do something else, this takes away from it. That's what you're describing. And then this shows up, this energy of avoidance shows up at home, not being present with our family. It shows up in our friendships. It shows up in our finances, and it shows up in every area, because our emotion is our emotion. And if we have an issue in one area with our emotion, that's going to show up across our entire life. People seem to struggle with this idea, Victoria, but you just shared that it can take you 3 months to get something done. And then when you have this difficult conversation, then you get it done in 2 hours. So I wonder how many people have this experience, because avoiding is a big issue. That's how people handle difficult situations. The number one response to something difficult and challenging is avoidance.
Yes, correct. And that's why getting into the zone actually have saved me a lot of time over the years, more than I realized. And that's why I mentioned in one of my posts that time is not linear. We think that time is 24 hours, we got to divide equally, we got to have energy to do this and do that. But then what is taking away our energy? What is the root cause of why it take us so much time? What was the root cause of me needing to procrastinate three months versus I'm capable of doing it within 1-2 hours? So if I were to if I didn't avoid that conversation, I would have saved 3 months of my time. And that is only one thing that I saw that I procrastinated. What about every other things that I couldn't do because of that?
So Victoria, this avoidance, is that driven by fear?
100%.
So you avoid something because you're afraid of what were you afraid of, that difficult thing? What was it?
I think it was something to do with I didn't feel good about something. So having that conversation probably triggered my not feeling good about what I did or what I didn't do. And the funny thing is that the conversation was easier than I realized when I actually went to do it.
That's usually the case. When we confront something that we had avoided, it's easier than we thought, because in our minds it becomes this big, when in reality it's this big. So
Yeah.
what you're talking about here, and what I've seen a lot of people do, is that they'll avoid these difficult things, and what they're actually avoiding is not the thing itself. They're avoiding their own reactions to the other person and what they'll say or what they'll do. So let's say Let's say someone is trying to collect money, like a company is owed money. And how do they get the party who owes them money? Let's say they owe them 100 grand, and which is a reasonable amount of money. So the company is owed 100 grand. How do they get the other party to pay them the 100 grand? They call them up and say, when are you going to pay? Why can't you pay? And then start threatening them if they don't pay what they're going to do. And somewhere in the process of doing that, they will use shame to manipulate them. Oh, you're a bad person, or what will people think of you? You're awful. So they'll do all these different tactics to manipulate the other person to do what they want. So in that process, let's say the person is avoiding that. What they're avoiding is their own shame. So they have fear stops them from confronting the conversation. But the fear is not the issue. And a lot of people are trying to solve fear. The solution to fear is courage. Oh, go be courageous. Go, you can do it. Pump yourself up. Let's go to a motivation seminar. Let's get ourselves pumped up and in the zone. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. What they're not dealing with, that motivation lasts 5 seconds.
Or meditate. Or meditate.
Sorry, we have a delay. Go on.
Oh, I was saying that or meditate or reframe, which is, if we just solve the problem already, you don't have to reframe or meditate if you go ahead and solve the problem.
So let me describe why meditating and reframing won't work in that instance. So we are pro reframing and meditating in the right circumstance. So in this particular case, the person's avoiding a difficult conversation. They're afraid of the other person getting angry and what the other person will say to shame them. And so they're afraid of a negative outcome. So they avoid the conversation. But what they're actually avoiding is their own shame. And the fear is a cover for their shame. And so the shame is what's stopping them. And if you just try and power over the fear and try and have more confidence and try and have fake confidence, fake motivation, you're not going to deal with the shame that's underneath. So by resolving the shame, you then can understand, then the fear goes away on its own. So trying to solve the problem of fear is not the problem. The problem is the shame. So if you deal with the core issue, the whole stack of things gets resolved and it becomes easy. Then that difficult thing that you had to do, so easy. Why so easy? And that's the part that people miss, Victoria.
Yes. The part that is the most difficult from my experience is when I think about it and what I make up about it, everything becomes more difficult. And that is what creates a lot of our own inner struggle. I think, do I do it? What if the person say this? What if this happened? What if I fail at this? Or if I try this? No. So all these are in our mind.
Psychobabble. So what you're saying is that your thinking is actually talking to yourself, processing the emotional outcome. Well, what if this happened? What if that happens? So there's a whole bunch of psychobabble goes on in one's head that could be avoided if we just went and got in action and faced that difficult conversation or did that difficult thing. I like the way, Victoria, that, now his name's escaped my mind. Brian Tracy, the old guy from California, I like the way he talks about it. He says, the first thing you should do in the morning is the most difficult thing. Don't leave it till the end of the day. Like most people put off, deal with the difficult things later. He said, deal with them up front, early. And he uses an analogy that sticks with me. He says, eat the frog. Now, some cultures like to eat frogs. If you know anything about me, my family come from England, and us English don't like frogs, right? We don't like to eat frogs. So we don't want to eat the frog, and because we find the frogs are slimy. And I grew up on a farm with lots of frogs, so I'm not going to eat them. So eating the frog means to take on that difficult task first thing in the morning, get it done with, and then the rest of the day can be plain sailing. So that means you can get into the zone much easier if you've already eaten the frog, isn't it?
Yep. The interesting. Yes, exactly. As we are discussing, right, the interesting thing is that last week we were talking about mastery of emotion as for leaders, and this is getting in the zone. And what I noticed is that we can't escape talking about emotion because everything is that connected, and that even the need to get even the tips to or the principle of getting into the zone to do things with less effort, to achieve more with less effort is about emotion. If I don't understand my emotion and well, should I say what it does to me, or I'm not aware how it impacts me, then I'm not going to be, my ability to get into the zone or having more flow will be more difficult.
Mm. Yes, interesting. We're talking
Unless,
about emotion.
unless, unless I put in a lot of force to achieve what I want to achieve. And I think the repercussion of that is that for a lot of people that we have worked with is health. By the time you reach
Whoa.
a young, you can put a lot of force. But as you get older, that is going to be a big problem.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And I think too, Victoria, the older you get, you have more knowledge and the less action you can take as you get older. And I think people don't realize that the bridge between knowledge and action is actually emotion. So the
Yes.
bridge that you cross over from having the knowledge and being able to do it, being able to implement it and get the result that you want, the bridge in between is emotion. That's the one that we cross. And if we are resolved to face whatever emotions we have and to resolve them along the way, then crossing the bridge is easy, and it becomes easier the more we do it. Then we develop the skills of dealing with these unsolved problems, resolving them, and crossing that bridge and taking action and getting what we want. When we use force to get across the bridge, we're not really across the other side. Part of us is left on the other side, mentalizing. Then the outcome that we get is less than what we want. We don't get, if we get at all, we get a partial outcome, a partial result. So crossing that bridge from knowledge to action is where emotion is. And this is the part that is underdeveloped in most people and not talked about enough.
Yes, I agree.
And you can't get into the zone if you have any of these emotions unresolved. Getting into the zone is where you let it go. So letting it go, when you're not hanging on to things, you're not hanging on to getting it right. You're not worried about making mistakes. You're not hanging on to being perfect. You're not worried about what people think of you. You're not worried about what outcome you can get. And the last thing you do is you say, oh, fuck it. You just let it go. Fuck it. I'm just going to do it. And when you jump in and go to do it, you get in the zone. It's easy. And then it's reinforcing your zone muscle that you can do it more often and sustain it.
Yeah, it's true. Even solving problem, you can get into the zone to solve problem. When you're more in the zone, doesn't matter what challenges show up. It's like, oh, you can solve it. You have solutions for everything.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people try and solve problems through force, don't they? The saying that is quite common is, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You're going to go around beating it with this hammer because it all looks like a nail. And I just read this morning that if you go to certain people, if you go to the doctor, the solution is going to be drugs or surgery, because that's their hammer, isn't it?
Yep.
So what's the final thoughts you'd like to leave everybody, how to get in the zone? And why would you want to do it? Why would you want to solve your problems from the zone? Otherwise, you're never going to be able to solve them through struggle, are you?
Yep. Well, I guess, for those of you who are really wanting to understand more how to get in the zone, how getting in the zone can help you with whatever results you want in life. This is, for me, that's the fast track, not the shortcut, but the fast track. Because
Right.
if learning about getting into the zone takes some effort, takes desire, take your effort, takes the willingness to go through some discomfort to understand how to get more in the zone. So it's not like, you think about something, it can happen, because wanting something does require our ability to allow ourselves to want, which include our emotion. And one of the questions that used to get to me, and the question I didn't like Harrison asking me was, what do you want? And I would get frustrated. What do you keep asking me what I want? But knowing what I don't want is easy. Knowing what I want is not that easy. So part of getting into the zone is to get through our ability to allow ourselves to have what we want. And it can be anything in your life. So yeah, I feel that getting in the zone is the most under discussed topic and most underused by the society, and it's our passion to help people with it.
So, Victoria, if people want to talk to you, how do they get hold of you? And you have this 45-minute game plan session that helps people to see how they can get more in the zone, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. Can DM me, we can have a chat. And, this is a big part of what we're doing with our team and with the people that we support, the clients that we support with. So just, get in touch with us.
So they can DM you. Now, what's special about this 45 minutes with you? Like, what makes you worth spending 45 minutes with? I mean, people should know already after reading your post and listening to you here for an hour, but I got to ask.
Well, the 45 minutes, first thing is no obligation game plan session. One of the thing that I love about what we do is that we advocate for personal sovereignty. And personal sovereignty means we believe that everyone should have the power to make their own choices. And we are like a vehicle to help people fast track their goals. And that we are one of the many vehicles, but we, of course, I'm blowing our own horn. I think we are the best. So if you want to fast track your goals, your leadership goal, get more in the zone, talk to us. It's like I say, no obligation. We'll talk through, whatever that. First thing is to get clear what you want. And then from there, we look at what's in the way and what you can do to get more in the zone. So that's
if someone meets with you and you ask them, what do you want? And they say, I don't know. What do you come to this game plan? What do you want from me? I don't know. What do you do with those people?
Well, then I will ask them other questions to, clearly, no one like to waste time. So just because someone is not clear what they are wanting doesn't mean they don't have something that they want, but they might not articulate it. So one of our unique expertise is to help people articulate that in the best way possible and to help you get clear.
So the benefit of clarity is that if you know what you want, you know where you're going, and you know how to get it, and you know what to do. That's clarity, isn't it? Then you just go do it.
Yeah. Yes.
And most people are not clear. They're not clear what they want. They're not clear where they're going. They're not clear what it will take, and they're not clear how to do it. So this is something that can help a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And it's free too, right? When they meet with you for a game plan session, you don't charge, even though I've heard you say many people offer to pay you for the game plan session, but you don't charge anything for it.
Yes.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this week for Get in the Zone for Leaders. And obviously there's much more we could be talking about than we can fit into 1 hour. We're over time right now. And then next week at noon, Wednesday, we will have another subject. We're yet to announce what that is. We'll have another subject next Wednesday. We meet here on LinkedIn Live every week. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time and your attention and your interest. And Victoria and I love sharing this with you. That's me, over and out. Bye-bye, and I'll hand over to Victoria.
Thank you, Harrison, and thank you for co-hosting with me for this weekly LinkedIn Live session. And I also want to appreciate everyone who is here today and who has been joining us regularly. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to connect with you guys more. Let's get more in the zone in whichever area that you choose to. And over and out. See you. I'm going to put this.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, we got this one. Ciao. Bye.
Bye-bye.